Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Council Sessions. I am Dave Cottingham here with my Mandalore podcast co-host, Martin Donison, aka Cyber Ren. How are you, sir?
Hello there.
I see what you did there. Yeah.
I just don't quite have the British accent, but yeah.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Or the
Good to be
Obi-Wan
back.
accent.
Good to be back.
Yeah, very good to see you again, Martin.
Yeah.
We are in a little bit of a hiatus on the Mandalore podcast because we are done watching and reviewing, deep diving, reviewing Obi-Wan Kenobi. And we are on hiatus a little bit. We'll come back and do a couple episodes, but we're on hiatus right now up until Andor hits, and then we'll be right back on talking about Andor.
That's
but right now, since that show is over, we are going to deep dive a little bit more into Obi-Wan himself, because I've been thinking about this ever since the show ended. And for those of you following this series, Council Sessions, that we started a little while ago, our very first Council Sessions, the question that was posed in that episode was, who is the greatest Jedi? And Casey and I went back and forth on several different Jedi, Obi-Wan being one of them, Yoda, of course, even Count Dooku, Qui-Gon Jinn, Anakin, Ahsoka. I mean, we kind of talked about all of them in some capacity.
Yeah.
Not sure if we ever landed on anybody because we both kind of, again, that was our first episode, so we were just kind of feeling this show out a little bit. But the big debate is the big thing about it is we talk about one question and we kind of deep dive into how we're going to answer that question. And it's a good back and forth because we might have different answers. So are you ready for this, Cyber?
I think I'm ready.
So the question that we're going to dive into in this episode is Obi-Wan Kenobi the greatest Jedi? Now, I know before we got into this, you would ask me a couple, a little bit about, what's the criteria here? And that's what's up for debate here. So,
okay,
let's get into it. Just overall, I mean, and set the criteria however you want, but where do you think Obi-Wan lands? Is he the greatest Jedi?
See, why this question is a fascinating question is because we kind of touched on it as we're wrapping up the finale of Obi-Wan over on Mandalore. I had asked you, I said, look at the powers that Obi-Wan displayed in this final episode, throwing the rocks and, the way he was tossing Vader around. I said, this is more powerful than we've ever seen old Kenobi at. And it made me ask you, I was wondering, is he the best Jedi we've ever seen? Is he actually more powerful? Because they always, in the lore of Star Wars, they always swore that Anakin was the chosen one. And Anakin's the greatest that ever was. And he would have been the best if he didn't get swayed to the dark side. But yet, he has never been able to beat Obi-Wan Kenobi in a fight. Not once has he won that battle.
That's right.
So, you could call it a question is whether he's the chosen one or not, but it really is Obi-Wan a better Jedi than he was. So, yes, there is many angles that we can look at this from, and I'll just throw a few at you, and then we can maybe pick where you want to go. Because are we talking about just force abilities? Who has the greatest use of force abilities and force power? Because we know from watching the Clone Wars animated series, Anakin was amazing. He is the most showboating, I would say, of the Jedi. He loves to show off and just make these spectacular moves where a lot of the other Jedi are more reserved in what they do, right?
Right.
And Obi-Wan is much more reserved. He's more of a defensive Jedi. So are we talking force abilities? Or are we talking, which is something else we touched on with old Ben there, is who's more in control of the force? Who's more in control of their emotions? Who doesn't let things get to them? And no matter what, they're always on top of things. That's a good way to look at it for Obi-Wan, I think, because he has rarely ever, even not even a hint, has lost control of the Force. Because we talked about the big debate of the temptation that Anakin succumbed to and what brought him to the dark side. Well, because he was always so emotional. Obi-Wan kept his emotions in check, and therefore he kept the Force in check. And so those are, I think, the two biggest ways that you can look at, is Obi-Wan the greatest Jedi ever?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. There's different criteria, I feel like, that you can attribute to any Jedi and start measuring them on those different attributes. We kind of dived into that. Casey and I did on that other question, and here are a couple of, I think, kind of what you touched on, but force ability definitely is one, I believe. I believe swordsmanship is another one. Because, like you said, Anakin has never been able to defeat Obi-Wan. Does that make him a better swordsman? I think there's wisdom is possibly one.
That's another good one, yeah.
And then I think there's, how do you say it? Maybe discipline. Basically, are you listening to the council? Are you listening to your master? Because as we know, Obi-Wan did that. Qui-Gon didn't. Anakin didn't. So I think if you look at those, what I say, 3 or 4 of those right there, that's kind of where I feel like you can start placing Jedi in different ranks of each one of those. And I think whoever has the most at the highest is where you would land. Because I agree with you. I think when it comes to power, pure power, before the show, I would have clearly said probably Yoda or Mace Windu.
Yeah, true.
But now I don't know. What Obi-Wan did in this series, it's like, especially when he finally tuned in during that last battle, it's like, he defeated Vader. It wasn't even close at the end there. And then his ability to survive this whole time, right? And basically give up his own life. Like we said, he didn't lose to Vader on the Death Star. He gave up, basically.
He gave up, yeah.
So, you talk about wisdom. I think Yoda is probably the most wise since he's been around all this time. But does that mean only because he's been around this time, or because he actually is that wise? I think it's both. Being around this time, I think he's learned a lot, but he definitely has the most knowledge of being a Jedi and training. He's trained so many younglings and Padawans. And then when I say swordsmanship, you can, again, I don't know if she's a Jedi per se, but Ahsoka obviously is masterful in swordsmanship. To be able to
very true.
Do what she did to Maul a couple of times. And technically in Rebels, she almost stood up to Vader.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's hard to throw in, these different ranks. But all the ones that I've mentioned, Obi-Wan is near the top.
In every category.
Yeah. And the fact that he survived this long, the fact that he survived this encounter with Vader that we see in the show, that's what just sparked this. I am leaning towards him being the greatest Jedi, even though I'm a huge Yoda fan.
Huge Yoda fan, which is why it surprises me. You're starting to call into question, is he better than Yoda even? Like that's a surprise, because I like that you brought up the point, is Yoda's 800 plus years what gives him the advantage? Because that gives him the time to continue to practice and hone his abilities. Plus it gives him the time to, I think without a shadow of a doubt, Yoda is the most wise. There's no question there.
Yeah.
And that's because of his 800 years of life. You can't quite, that's why he's the leader of the council. That's why he's the leader of everything. But we've seen Yoda make some mistakes too. We've seen him make some bad decisions. And I mean, nobody's perfect, right? Even in the Star Wars world, nobody's perfect. But when you compare him directly to Obi-Wan, are they on the same level? Because, I mean, if you look at Obi-Wan's swordsmanship, he beats Vader, and Anakin was known to be the best.
Right.
But he beats Vader handedly a couple times. So, you know, I think that's because what we saw in the flashbacks of the show, or like I said, Obi-Wan, it comes down to control again. Obi-Wan controls himself, even in a fight. He controls himself, so he knows how to counter properly, he knows to defend properly, and he waits for his opportunity to make the right move, even when it looks like he's down and out. And that's the difference. Anakin is always so cocky and so sure of himself, and he spends more time talking and being this abrasive aggressor that he's missing his moments. And Obi-Wan just sits there and waits. He's got the patience.
Right.
So as much as because I love Anakin so much from the Clone Wars, and as much as I want to say, no, he was the most amazing there ever was, the fact that Obi-Wan can still beat him every time, I think makes me want to lean towards Obi-Wan is better in that fact.
Mm-hmm.
And Obi-Wan has better control. And he's got better... he's definitely more wise than Anakin. I wouldn't say he's more wise than Yoda, but like you said, if you're looking at all these categories and Obi-Wan is near the top of all of them, you have to take the culmination of all of that. So if you get points, say, for the top 10 ranking of each category, and you get, 10 points for being number 1, 9
Yes.
So add up all the points after each category, who will have the most points at the end? Probably Obi-Wan.
Probably Obi-Wan. Yeah, I agree with you. I think, and let's throw a quick history out real quick, because he was trained by Yoda as a Padawan. His master was Qui-Gon, who extended his training through to his knighthood. So he already had 2 of the wisest Jedi, arguably.
Yeah.
And then you want to talk about his trials, or his confrontations. Darth Maul end up defeating him, kills him, defeats him several times. We see him fight him several times in the Clone Wars. Ultimately faces Vader, Vader, defeats him. 10 years later, defeats him again. You can say he lost to him the first time, but it wasn't Obi-Wan yet.
No, he hadn't practiced his abilities in 10 years.
10 years, right?
So
once he had it,
yeah,
defeated him.
Yeah.
Faces Maul in Rebels, quickly defeats him.
Yeah, and he's an older man too.
And he's an older man. You can say Maul was kind of over his prime, whatever, that's fine. And then, of course, in A New Hope, he's basically toe-to-toe with Vader until he stops. Now, the one I didn't say, which we haven't forgot, we shouldn't forget, in episode 2, he technically lost to Count Dooku. I mean, Count Dooku was about to kill him until Anakin steps in, right? So Count
Yes.
Dooku is the only Sith that's really defeated him. And unfortunately, we never saw him fight Sidious.
But wasn't there a lot going on? It wasn't just Dooku. He also had guys shooting at him, and there's a lot going on. It was like one against many, wasn't it?
No, it's just them two. So him and Anakin track him down in that hangar. Anakin charges at him, and then Dooku just lightnings him out of the way, and then it's just one-on-one, him and Obi-Wan.
Right. I'm thinking of the battle out on the platform.
The platform.
When they're out where the ships land, and their droids are all over the place. I'm picturing Grievous. I'm thinking of Grievous.
Oh, the Grievous
Dooku.
thing. Yeah, that was episode 3. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm thinking of Grievous.
And he defeated Grievous. 4 lightsabers going at him, whatever.
Yeah.
That was...
yeah.
So Dooku, again, Dooku's pretty powerful. Plus when he converted, he had a dark side. He was on the dark side. So it's like, he had all that power. So, so that's mistake. That's not, that's no, easy task to defeat him. I mean, even Yoda was toe to toe with him, didn't really defeat him. when Yoda finally walked in there and faced Darth Tyrannus, is who his Darth name is.
Right.
So I would still rank. I mean, with all the wins he's had, despite that one loss there, I would put Obi-Wan definitely up there as far as confrontations and swordsmanship. But the one thing that I remember me and Casey talked about, and I'm curious to know your thoughts about this, is Obi-Wan is definitely one of those that seems to be a by the book Jedi, right? He's very much
totally, yeah,
the will of the council, right? He wants to know what the council wants to do, and he follows it without question. Something his master Qui-Gon didn't do. Qui-Gon had a sense that the Jedi were not always right, that they did things that they shouldn't have done, or they didn't do things when they should have.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan is definitely by the book, and he tried to train Anakin that way as well, even though Anakin defied a lot of that, very much like Qui-Gon. So does that, I guess part of that is is that good or is that bad? Like, is it good to follow the council, or is it good to actually have your own thoughts and to do what you think is right all the time? How much does that affect Obi-Wan's greatness?
Yeah, interesting perspective to look at it from, because I mean the Jedi have been around for 1,000 years, like however
more
long.
than that.
So
10,000 years or something. Yeah,
they've had all that time to develop their boundaries, their rules, the path that they have to follow. So I think to stay true to that is a good thing, because they've designed it in a way that if you follow their course they set out for you, you shouldn't really be drawn to the dark side. You shouldn't be manipulated. You shouldn't be, easily led astray if you follow the path that they laid out for you. And I think that's ultimately why Obi-Wan, because we talked about on Mandalore, why Obi-Wan never did crack. Nothing ever swayed him. He was never, lured to the dark side, because he stayed true to everything. Whereas, Anakin didn't stay true to it, and he let his emotions get to him, and he got manipulated by Palpatine. Qui-Gon is one of the greats, but he questioned a lot of things. And it's interesting when you read the book Master and Apprentice, there's a lot you learn about Qui-Gon that really, really makes me believe or agree, I should say, with his thinking and how the Jedi aren't always right. They're not always 100% correct in everything they do. But he did lose to Maul. He got stabbed through the gut by Maul. So he wasn't the greatest in that sense, but it's the way he thought things that I more agreed with than I do with the council. Because a lot of scenes, especially in the prequels, when you listen to the Jedi Council and they're all in that circular room and they're all debating and talking, that's no different than government. And we all disagree with government, and we all disagree. So it really is tough to, I think at the council level, maybe that's where they start to lose some of their greatness, if it makes sense. But if you're not quite at the council level and you're someone like Obi-Wan who is just sticking true to the course that they laid out for you, I think that sets you apart, and you're able to be considered great in that sense, because you're not being swayed, you're not being led astray by anything, because you are following the course laid out for you. And I think that's where Obi-Wan stands out. It makes him, we kind of were talking about it. He's like one of the only ones that stayed true all the way through, out of the Jedi that we saw in the stories that we've seen, right? Like he's the one that stayed true, and he never once strayed,
right?
And he got to live out his life. He got to ultimately choose when it was his time to go. And so I don't know if that was too much of a roundabout answer to get to your question. Like, does following the Jedi path take away from his greatness? And I think in Obi-Wan's instance, no, it doesn't. Mm-hmm. But looking at the council as a whole, I think there are some areas there they can work on that I agree with Qui-Gon's perspective from.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally agree. And then, of course, there's that aspect of love where we know Obi-Wan had a relationship, had feelings for somebody.
Satine. Yeah.
Satine, but was able to still manage that and know that I can't do that, basically, or it's not going to work. It's not going to make me, it's going to risk my temptations, my possibly my fall. So that in itself is powerful to be able to do, to bury your feelings enough, like what Yoda says, bury your feelings deep down. It's like he was able to do that in order to, stay true to the Jedi. So,
which is sad though. Like that's a sad thing because that means they go through life alone.
Absolutely.
You're like a monk, basically, which Jedi are often referred to as monks.
Yeah, but I love that's another thing too, where I question Yoda's wisdom a little bit in this sense, because I was just actually watching it. Star Wars was on TNT this whole weekend, so it's been on my background on my TV all day. So, but there was a scene in Episode 3 that I love. The scene. It's when Anakin is sitting there with Yoda, and it's rare that we've seen these scenes where Yoda and Anakin are in the same scene, especially in live action. But Yoda asks Anakin about his visions, and Anakin says, they're of death, they're of pain. And Yoda says, is it you or somebody else? And he says, somebody. And he says, basically he says, you need to, Anakin basically says, what should I do? I'm not going to let these things come true, these visions. And Yoda says, you must train your mind to let go of all that you fear to lose. So in that sense, and when I hear him say that, when I hear him say, celebrate when people die. No, don't mourn them. Like, celebrate that they are now one with the Force. So you must train your mind to let go of everything you fear to lose. Now, when I hear that doesn't mean you can't love something or someone. So Anakin could love Padme and spend the rest of his life. It's just that he can't be afraid to feel what he will feel when he loses her. Because if he can control that, then why couldn't he be with her? And that's what the whole thing about the Jedi is. Yeah. And I love, again, I've said this several times, I love going back to Episode 2 when Anakin tells Padme, it's like, we aren't, compassion is essential to a Jedi's life. So to him, they are encouraged to love because they're supposed to care about everything and everybody. So there is love there. There is compassion there. But it's how you can control. Can you control it? I feel like Obi-Wan has figured out how to control it. He definitely cares about Satine. There's no doubt about that.
Oh yeah.
And I did the book. Have you read Brotherhood yet?
I don't think so.
There's a book out there called Brotherhood that takes place right after Episode 2 starts, and it's about Obi-Wan and Anakin. It's a great book. Everybody's.
Oh.
Me and Hannah are about to do a Beyond the Saga on it.
I'm gonna look at it right now.
Great book. But there's even a scene in there where he sees Duster Satine giving a speech, and he kind of talks about the feelings he's had and stuff like that. So it's like they're there. I mean, you could truly see in Clone Wars too that there's something there, but he has done what Yoda has taught him, which is don't have that compassion. Don't be afraid to lose them. And so I think he has trained himself to feel for her, but not be attached to her.
He's really good at non-attachment. Yeah.
Non-attachment. Correct. Yep.
Yeah. But you could even say that, I mean, even just looking at this series lately, was he attached to Leia? Because he put everything on the line to go get her.
That's true.
Is that attachment?
Well,
or is that just his duty?
Yeah,
right?
I think it was his. I think it was his duty. I think it was his mission, and of course he cares for her. I think he cares for both of them.
Yeah,
but not enough to obviously turn him over to the dark side. You know, that's the thing. Is like, where's that line? You know, so
yeah.
So, I don't know, Martin. Has this discussion solidified, or is it still up for debate in your mind?
It is really tough because another point while you were discussing some things I wanted to bring up, and we joked about this on Mandalore, is that look at what Obi-Wan has also done. Like he's got, we were making a joke about how many Sith hate him so much. You got Darth Maul, whose sole purpose in life is to get revenge against Obi-Wan for cutting him in half. And then you got Anakin turned Vader, who all he cared about was finding Obi-Wan and proving that he was better than him. And like it's so does that mean Obi-Wan's a good Jedi because he causes this much hatred to be thrown at him? How do you take that into perspective?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely on the highest on the hate list for sure.
Yeah. You don't see people hunting down Yoda. You don't see people hunting down Luke or Rey. Like,
yeah,
they're after Obi-Wan. They're pissed. They hate him.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. Again, Yoda's my favorite, and I love him to death. But it's like, when episode 3 happens and he goes into hiding, I mean, he literally is out of it. He's done. Like that's the last we ever see of Yoda as far as being a Jedi.
Yeah.
I mean, he does train Luke, but he's exiled himself and he's not part of it. Like he's not in the fight anymore. Like Obi-Wan ends up being in the fight.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is kind of weird now, you know, because he's fighting for 900 years. Like he's in. Well, I don't know when he becomes a Jedi, but I'm assuming it's when he's young. So for almost 900 years, he's leading this entire, council by the council as Jedi. When does he become a master? And all that stuff we don't know yet for sure. But at this point during the movies, he is the Grand Master of the Jedi Council. He is the ultimate leader. So it's a shame that he doesn't come back. Now, of course, I know the limitations. He's a puppet. So, when they shot the original movies, so they weren't going to make him be what he was in the prequels. But,
yeah.
But I don't know. I think, I don't think you can throw just side notes. I don't think you can really throw like a Luke in this conversation because he didn't really, he wasn't really out there enough, I don't feel like, to do much. Again, Ahsoka's in there. I think Ahsoka could possibly be discussed. I think Qui-Gon's up there. I think Dooku, before he even turned, might have been, because we know a lot more about him with his books and stuff like that's centered around him. He was actually a pretty respected and high level Jedi before he left and got manipulated by Sidious. So, but the body of work, I think, as more of these things come out, these stories about Obi-Wan, like I said, Brotherhood is really good. We're getting another book of Obi-Wan, I believe. It's called Padawan. That's coming out later this year.
Cool.
It's about him as a Padawan. He's got a comic series that's out right now. So it's like you're going to be getting more stories of Obi-Wan that I think are just going to solidify him really even more as probably the greatest Jedi.
Well, and where does Mace Windu stand in all of this? He's got to be pretty high up, I would say. We don't know a lot about him. There's not a lot of stories about him.
Correct. Yeah, and that's the thing too, is I feel like Mace, when I saw him in the prequels, he definitely came across as arguably the most powerful Jedi. Maybe not the most wise, but he was definitely the most powerful, and he definitely was the most skilled as far as the Force, because apparently he's the only Jedi, and I think this might be canon again. I know it was Legends, but he was the only one that has mastered all forms of the Jedi, all fighting styles.
Wow.
So that says a lot. But here's the kicker, which kind of, I don't know if this hurts him a lot, because there's some have said that arguably he beat Sidious in episode 3. Like, when him and those 3 other Jedi, Kit Fisto was there, when they came and confronted Sidious, Sidious was able to take out 3 of them and then fight Mace one-on-one. And people are saying, well, he basically defeated Sidious.
He had him until Anakin came in, yeah.
Well, but did he really? Because the way I saw it was Sidious let him beat him so that Anakin would walk in at that time and see what he saw. Because that was his final way of getting Anakin to turn.
Right.
So I don't believe, I think Sidious would have beaten Mace, to be honest.
Yeah.
Now, who could any of Buddy beat Sidious? That's the thing too. Sidious basically defeated Yoda. I mean, he didn't kill him, but he basically made Yoda, run and quit.
Yeah.
Could Obi-Wan have even stood toe to toe to Sidious? I doubt it. I don't think. I think he would have been defeated. Sidious probably could be arguably the most powerful with the dark side with him. So Mace is there. I think Mace is up there as well. I think, like you said, I think you can check the box and give him some points for being up there on maybe swordsmanship and maybe power, force power, but wisdom. I don't know. He definitely follows the council. And all that stuff. But I'm just not sure. Mace is up there though.
I think ultimately maybe what it comes down to for Obi-Wan is he's the one that didn't turn.
Yeah, totally.
Because we also talked about, look how much he's gone through. The emotional trauma, the people that he has lost, and the struggles that he's gone through, and he still didn't turn. I mean, Anakin lost his mom, and then he lost Padme, and those are the things that made him turn, but Obi-Wan had just as much, if not more, loss in his life.
Yes, right.
And none of that got to him. None of that, I mean, it didn't get to him in a sense that it affected his emotional state where he was going to turn and want to get revenge and want to be angry. So I think for me, that ultimately comes down to that one point being the reason why he is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, is because he has faced, I mean, we don't know how much Yoda has faced over his 800 years, 900 years. How much loss has he suffered?
That's right.
We don't know. But just in the short time that we've known Obi-Wan, he has lost so much. And he's faced so much adversity, and yet he still trucks on.
Yep.
And
ultimately, even the loss of Anakin might have been enough to really...
Could have been, yeah.
I mean, you can see how emotionally he gets, with the thought of that.
More so than any other time, yeah.
That's right.
He showed a lot of emotion, and yet he's still able to keep things in check just enough.
That's right.
To not be swayed. So that to me is the deciding factor right there. I even look at this Obi-Wan series and we look at the power he displayed. I mean, just talking about when he wasn't even full strength yet, when they were in the underground or the underwater tunnel system there at the whatchamacallit base for the Inquisitors.
Yeah.
When that crack in the glass was happening, he held back the force of the ocean.
That's right.
Do you have any idea how much pressure that is? And he was able to hold it back and then redirect it to a couple panes of glass down.
Yes.
That is unbelievable power. And he wasn't even quite feeling himself yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah.
I don't know how we come to a conclusion of this question to come to a definitive answer. Is he the best Jedi? I'm not sure if we can actually fully answer that. I think we've argued enough that we could say yes, but there's a couple minor points that, with like Yoda's longevity gives him an advantage in some areas that I don't think Obi-Wan could ever attain. So but again, when you look at the overall picture, I think he would be the number one front runner to be
I think I'm with
the best. Yeah.
I think I'm with you. I think with all the criteria, I think he's up there. I think if you kind of focus on a couple other things, I think you can put Yoda up there. I think you can put Mace up there. You could even probably put Qui-Gon up there in some aspects, but
yeah,
full body of work, full life. You know, if you look at lifespan and accomplishments and all this, I mean, Obi-Wan's up there, man. He's definitely up there. I feel like this show really excelled him up too, because I think, you know, just seeing him and I think the live action part of it really helped, because if you just see him in animation technically could have a tendency of being a little exaggerated, you know, with skills, you know, when you see you know what I mean? Like, it's like, they can do it because it's animation, but seeing him in live action and watching what he did in that, I think it's just amazing. Like you said, with the stuff he did with the water, then of course his fight with Anakin or Vader at the end there, it's like, and be able to, the strength to be able to not let your emotions dictate your path. That's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good.
I think I figured out a way. If you reword it, is Obi-Wan the greatest force for good? Yes, without a doubt.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Greatest force for good or of good. I don't know how you want to put it. To me, he's the ultimate light side warrior, defender, practitioner, whatever you want to call it. I think he's the ultimate on the light side because of everything we already said. Mm-hmm. Never wavers. Not once.
Nope.
No matter what has been thrown at him, he has not ever wavered.
Right.
And that makes him the greatest, I think.
Okay. I'm with you. I think that's right. I think he's definitely established that. And of course, we're going to be seeing a lot more stories from him. And as these shows go on, and who knows, you know, we might have this debate again once we actually start seeing more from Ahsoka, because even though she's not a Jedi fully, she is a Force user. She's on the light side, like you said.
Yeah. Well, would she be the greatest Force user? That's how you rephrase the question.
Exactly. There you go. Yep.
Not the greatest Jedi. Yeah.
All right. So let us know who you think, or if Obi-Wan is up there on your list, how much this show contributed to that. You know, that'd be good to know. So let us know how what you think about all that, and keep coming back here for more council sessions. And I guess I'm happy to say that Martin will probably be more of a regular on here.
Yeah.
So you're gonna see us talk about all kinds of topics on here on council sessions. Go to our Patreon account if you want to get these episodes earlier. Of course, also some exclusive content. I think we actually have, don't we have a council session on there? That's just, I think we did one that was
maybe
just Patreon exclusive, I think. I can't remember. It's getting late over here. Thanks everybody, really truly, for checking this out. Hope everybody had a great holiday weekend, and we will be back very shortly. I'll be getting a new Inside the Force out this week as well. And then go, of course, follow the Mandalore podcast as we take a little hiatus right now. But if you haven't seen or listened to our previous episodes where we deep dive into Obi-Wan Kenobi, you can get all 6 of those right now on your podcast feeds.
Yep.
And then, of course, check out our YouTube and our InsideTheForce.com, where you can get all the subscriptions there. I think I ran through everything.
I think you covered it, man.
Appreciate it. As always, Martin, take care. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, Vizsla.
All right, everybody, take care. We'll see you later. May the Force be with you.